Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, cough drop. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We'll get back to the JRC here just a moment, but first the usual disclaimers and, of course, the trigger warnings. If you're unfamiliar with the Stop the Shocks campaign or the campaign against the troubled teen industry, pertinent links are in the description box. Autistic massive archive with years and years and years and years of receipts in regards to the JRC and what they get up to behind closed doors. The article written by Neuroclastic, where they interviewed over 800 ABA professionals in regards to the Judge Rotenberg Center's so-called behavior modification program. It did get under the JRC's skin so bad they did threaten Neuroclastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. Of course they refused. You know the drill. Please read the article. Share it on all your social media. We got the Neuroclastics GoFundMe link up as well because unlike the JRC, we do not have access to unlimited funding in case they ever do see through with their threat. To the trigger warnings. When we talk about places like the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center or Agape Boarding School for Boys, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, please utilize the headphones. Also, this channel is marked not for kids for a reason. We use profanity and speak on dark subjects. If your child's 16 and younger and watching, parental supervision is advised. Alright. Also, I apologize, but I'm getting double whammy today with allergies. So, I know my voice is going to sound a little weird, especially with the cough drop, but this is so I can breathe, people. Alright, so we're going to go into where we left off yesterday. Alright. SAS, we already went over the medications, which they did not this time list out all of the medications, so that tells me somebody was learning. Because you can't list all the medications, have over half of them have nothing to do with so-called behavioral issues, and then say that it was put there to make them comatose. And expect someone like me to buy it. No. So, maybe the person who wrote this particular one is operating a little bit more, I don't want to say intelligently, but you get my point, I'm sure. Alright. SAS is in dire physical condition. Lacked all daily living skills, could not feed herself, was not toilet trained, and her behaviors interfered completely with her education. When it comes to these sort of things, JRC, your primary questioning needs to begin with the singular word, why? It's a profound but easy question to ask, isn't it? And you sitting there trying to tell everyone that they are so severe, there's no way to figure out why. It's bullshit. It's complete bullshit. Simply another way of forcing us to come the whole way to communicate in a way that you approve of and understand, as opposed to even trying to meet us halfway. What's scary, folks, in particular, is places like the JRC target nonverbal kids for a reason. A very nefarious reason at that. Can you guess what it is? It's because they can continue to make $265,000 per year per student off of a student who is nonverbal being stuck on the equivalent of a human shock collar. Yeah. If it sounds sinister, that's because it is. If it sounds evil, it's because it is. If it sounds barbaric, again, that's because it is. The fact of the matter is, it does not matter whether said neurodivergent is non-verbal or not. Every other program, residential or community-based, have found ways working with non-verbal neurodivergents. And yes, we are talking about the non-verbal that have gotten, quote-unquote, so severe that there are iron bars on the doors and in the windows of their home. Yes, hitting themselves, sometimes hitting their family members, sometimes getting aggressive when out in public. We talking the same language now, JRC? Good. Because here are the facts. At school out here, just a little bit to the left of the new ARC building off of, I believe that's I-47, have students that have gone in displaying the exact same things you are saying about SAS. Exact same types of behaviors. Some of them, like SAS, are nonverbal. But wouldn't you know it, in spite of that, they are required, just like everybody else is who is within the service system in the state of Missouri, to still have a full functional behavioral assessment completed before enrollment. And why is that? Because it brings us back to the question of why. And by the way, but that's just the tism, that's how you all are? You're simply trying to make things easier for yourselves. It's nothing more than cheap justification for the barbarity that you visit down upon us while making millions of dollars off of our pain and suffering, decade after decade, year after year. Okay? There are millions of neurodivergents all over the world, different diagnoses and flavors, or quote-unquote severities. Some are nonverbal, some are not nonverbal. Some have semi-nonverbal, or others, like me, we've been masking for too long. You know, like back when I worked for Wayfair, and I did 3 back-to-back 15-hour mandatory shifts, where towards the end of it, within the last hour and a half, I began to slowly lose my ability to speak. And yet, they have still found a way to complete a full functional behavioral assessment before any discussion in regards to enrollment in any residential or community-based schooling program is even discussed. It happens before any kind of intervention. It happens before getting any primary clinicians set up, choosing the proper psychiatrists and psychologists. It is literally the next step right after diagnosis. Nothing goes further until it's done. There are thousands of neurodivergents out in this area. I would know. Because remember, this is the Southwest region. This was the 25% area that was under my office when I worked for the state. Okay? Thousands of kids. You cannot look me in the eyes and try and tell me that I have never dealt with someone as quote-unquote severe with the same types of behaviors that they are listing here for SAS. And if I did, then obviously whatever we have done to help them in their own treatment program must not work at all, because how could it? When in all actuality, it's worked every single time. Every single time. Not immediately. If you don't think that there were not some extreme, hairy situations that I and some of my teammates would have to do that visit of, that I always reference as when things go wrong. Yes, I've had to do those. Quite a few times. But you know what? In time, because they set the proper foundation first, and were then better able to make a more educated choice in regards to treatment programs, it ends up being successful in the end. I don't want to tell you it's a simple matter of patience, because I am extremely familiar, having both lived it as well as worked in this field, of how dire some of these behaviors can get and how big the risks are. I'm not going to sit there and wag a finger and be like weird-ass body supremacist. I'm not that. I may tease you all and constantly tell you the neurotypicals are not okay. It's dark humor, folks, alright? There is no instant fixes when you're doing things right. But when you are doing things right, you gotta give it time. Gotta give it time. That's the one thing everybody hates, isn't it? We have almost been programmed in this age of instant satisfaction, the instant quick fix. Well, I'm sorry, folks, but that's not how things work in regards to treatment when you're doing it right. It's not realistic. There is no pill on planet Earth that I can swallow in the morning and all of a sudden I am neurotypical for the rest of the day until I pass out and go to bed. That's never going to happen. Never going to happen. But I can get around in the world and do the things I need to do, maintain my home, eat healthy. Actually got to the point where I really prefer it, especially Greek yogurt. Don't get me started. It's kind of my crack, especially right now. The point is, the JRC is listing behaviors. They are not asking the all-important question of why. The folks of us that are non-verbal, a lot of the older dinosaurs don't even think to try to get to the answer of why. Because they think we're incapable of it. I am 40 years old. Maybe you can't see it on here, but I'm getting some pretty decent grays. I've got these weird puffy skins on either side of my face because I can see details that is driving me kind of slowly nuts. Just because it wasn't there before. So now I can see it. It's just weird. You got to get to why, folks, okay? The JRC is not asking why. They are not attempting to get at, find out, and discover what the triggers are, any more than some of the lingering dinosaurs from the previous age of treatment are trying to do. You know, the exact same ones that seem to have Trump's ear and wants to restart the institutional era again. Because it went so well the first time. And they believe, for those of us that are nonverbal, they believe we are unintelligent. We do not understand the world around us at all. We're too stupid to speak. We don't even understand the words that people are saying around us. Therefore, they feel like there is no point in trying to get to the why of the behavior. So, they do, whether it's through ABA mindfuckery, or whether it's through the more insane JRC human shock collar method. They're going to only deal with the behavior alone. Punish the behavior, do nothing to figure out why, because they don't believe we even know why we do the things we do. I hate to tell you all this, but it's complete and utter bullshit. I've been doing this type of work now for quite some time. Nonverbals understand you perfectly when you're speaking around them. Just because they are not verbally responding to you does not mean they're not listening to you. They understand every goddamn word. Okay? They understand a hell of a lot more than they are given any credit for. But as long as we still have these old views in this field, you're going to continue to have a whole set of kids who get dismissed except to be punished for behaviors that nobody bothers to figure out the why behind. Let's get real here. You're never going to get anywhere in regards to having real progress with the more not so great behavioral issues if you continue to ignore the question of why. Masking and suppressing emotions only works for so long. And it is exhausting on a physical, psychological, emotional, and hell, spiritual level. And then it drops. Wash, rinse, repeat. one would think that the JRC would reach out to residential programs similar to theirs, at least on the surface, like Rivendell, to find out how did they get that full functional behavioral assessment completed? How did they get into where they could discover what the triggers are to those more terrifying behaviors coming out of those kids? How did they do it? What was the success rate? Do they have any data in regards to their nonverbals, in regards to treating the triggers so that the symptomatic behavior at least comes down to a rate where it can be better managed? Has the JRC at any point whatsoever ever reached out to anyone other than themselves in their bizarre, evil, Mingala-esque echo chamber to get some help in an area that they are obviously either not educated in or callously think they don't need to be educated in? Right? They list all of these symptoms for shock value because they want to make the person seem so out of control that the only conclusion that the reader could come to would be that we best leave them in the JRC's care. They know best. They're the experts. And that might work on a more general public. Unfortunately, I am very sad to say. But it isn't true, folks. It doesn't pass the sniff test. Because if there are other residential programs out there with kids who did the proper steps in the exact way they are supposed to take said steps, how is it they are seeing progress? How is it they're uncovering the triggers with their nonverbals, every bit dealing with the exact same behaviors as they're listening about SAS? How are they doing it if it's not successful? Have they even searched for the data to see the success rates for the different programs for other nonverbals? There is a wide scope of autistic people out in the world. Millions of us. Millions. So, why is it that they, still using the methods I am talking about, are having some success? Granted, not at once, not with a quick fix, but they're having success. Whereas the only way the JRC sees any kind of so-called stopping in the behavior is literally right after they inflict violence on their person. Math isn't mathing, folks. There's a lot of nonverbals out there. They have different types of residential and community-based programs all over the world who deal with folks like SAS here every single day. If they are having success doing things the right way, why is the JRC still trying to convince us that that's just not possible, when all the numbers, the science, and the data tells us the polar opposite? Yeah. We don't get to why that any proposed solution is not going to have any form of longevity. On that fact, fact, folks, we're going to close out for this one. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few we do tend to get removed from time to time. So, folks, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe. Don't forget to hit the comments. I appreciate your time. As always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea hope you have a good one. I'll see you all in a minute. Bye, everyone.